6, 5, 6, 7, 8.
Where are you listening to that?
What's it take to get your number? What's it take to bring you home? Hurry up, it's time to suffer. Order up, I'm hot to go. What's it take to get your number? Hurry up, it's getting cold. Hurry up, it's time to suffer. Order up, I'm hot
Hello, Mudbeards slash
Hello, you blah.
Wilderness Survivors. Nice to have you guys back. So today what we're going to be doing is another Yellowjackets video. I wanted to tackle one big theory I had regarding Coach Ben and how by the end of his character story he'll have wished he had died long ago, maybe even during the crash. But before we get started, let's go ahead and go through some of the new developments we have throughout the episode. This episode brings us an iconic pairing in both Walter and Shauna. Very unexpected, but very cool to see. However, I think it's pretty obvious that Walter had intentionally set the entire thing up with Shauna so that he could get in close. Does anyone notice the parallels between Shauna and Adam Martin and Walter and Shauna? Could this be foreshadowing that potentially Walter could end up killing Shauna? See, Walter is a character who I find very interesting. At first I thought maybe he was planning to take down the girls in some way, but I'm now realizing that he actually is just trying to get close with Misty. And I think the closer he tries to get with Misty and the more she rejects him and treats him how everyone has treated her in her life, the more he's closer to just straight up snapping. I think he's very much obsessed with her for some reason, and maybe he sees a lot of parallels with himself within her, but the fact that she keeps pushing him away is starting to drive him crazy. We can see throughout these episodes that he's not necessarily trying to make Misty mad, but he definitely has an obsession with her. His excuse for following Shauna was that he believed she could have been the one that killed Lottie Matthews. And I do have a video coming out, another court case video akin to my last one that I made, where I'm going to be covering how Lottie Matthews could have died and who the suspects could be. But for right now, I want to focus on some other aspects of the story. Lottie and her family. We get to see a little bit more about her parents. We knew that they had gotten a divorce, but one of my theories that I had originally tackled in a video you can check out here, this theory basically suggests that Lottie's family had built this entire wilderness experience in the hopes of testing things out and seeing if there was more to nature or human nature as a whole, hence the spirituality side of the show. And this whole episode, every moment we got with Lottie's dad, I felt like was feeding into that case. Especially considering the fact that he seems to be suffering from an onset of dementia, which leaves a lot of wiggle room for what could have happened. I think they're trying to play with the idea that he could have potentially killed Lottie by accident, but again, I'll touch more on the Lottie stuff when I get to my court case video. Either way, let's go ahead and jump back in time to the team timeline. See, last episode they had decided the verdict for Ben would be guilty, and a lot of characters had voted against him who I seriously did not expect. Last episode left me a little bit confused with a lot of character decisions, and I was getting irritated with how much the wilderness seemed to sway people's votes. I guess the main source of my irritation was the fact that people will take the first glance of the wilderness and just fully stick to that. But this episode gave me a little bit of hope. See, instead of sticking to whatever weird glimpse of vision Lottie got while she was looking at Shauna during the voting last episode, she decides to keep searching into what the wilderness could want, which in turn leads to Ben's survival. See, they all go to the cave while the other girls are trying to figure out what to do with Ben as a whole, Ty trying to activate her sleep mode so she can easily shoot Ben without feeling as bad. I don't know, I think the girls very much disassociate themselves from the hard decisions and tough things out there in the wilderness. Lottie, Akilah, and Travis decide to head into the cave. As they enter the cave, we get a reference to Delphi, which is interesting because a lot of theorists out there who believe in the wilderness and the Greek iconography in relations to what the girls are going through did call out the cave being resembling of Delphi's story. So to all of you who thought that this was connected, you were absolutely right and the writers are paying attention. Either way, they decide to enter the cave and they toy with this idea that Akilah could potentially die, especially considering Travis was feeling guilty for putting her in that place, but thankfully she makes it through, coming out of the vision revealing that the girls' bridge back to civilization is Coach Ben. They rush back to the firing squad and barely get there in the nick of time to be able to save my boy Ben. And while initially you'd think, hey, this is awesome, this is great, he gets to live, everybody's happy, great times to come. Unfortunately, as soon as he was saved, I immediately had my heart sink because they were building up the episode like he truly was getting a send-off. Even though he wasn't as prevalent in this episode, throughout the last 4 episodes, we very much got a culmination of his story. When they were about to shoot Ben, I was a little happy because the promo had teased that they could set him on fire, and I thought this would be a much cleaner death for him, at least. Side note, I'm glad Akilah, Lottie, and Travis got the chance to be a hero this time around because their decisions last week really disappointed me, so it was cool. Again, Akilah's back on my spot for #1 deserved to live, better make it out character. Again, my girl Akilah better be left alone and better not suffocate in that cave. That's all I'm saying. Specifically when the girls were about to shoot him and even Jen was putting the bag over his head and he said, "You guys should stare me in the eyes," and they said, "You don't deserve that," that proves he's already an outsider looking in. Couple this with the fact that we know, presumably, there's 8 survivors in total. And while the girls did let him live, they did decide to go ahead and cut his one working leg so that there'd be no potential for him to ever escape if he ever wanted to. Which was extremely brutal and really hammered in the nail that this dude does not have good times coming. See, we know there's 8 survivors, so potentially Ben could be kept around, and since he's the bridge, maybe they find him so important that they could make him the Antler Queen or the Suicide King or the Oracle, whatever have you. He could be the being that kind of leads the girls in some way, and maybe he numbs himself so much to the point that he just becomes a silent religious figure. Sure, that's possible. I just don't see that being the case. I truly do think that one of the girls we see on screen will end up being the Antler Queen, and I truly do think that Ben is gonna regret not having died in the crash. See, earlier when I was doing my season 3 predictions based off of the trailer, we can see throughout the trailer, and spoiler alert if you try to avoid trailer shots, but we can see throughout the trailer that at some point the girls are having a sort of dinner at night, or maybe a sort of party, and throughout the party there's a random shot of Natalie looking purely shocked. My original theory was that with Akilah's cave visions and the llama specifically telling her that all animals fight back, all animals will defend themselves, I figured that potentially Lottie could fully lose it and start sacrificing / killing, eating all of the animals while they were still alive, resulting in a grand massacre where the girls all kind of go crazy and have a sort of blood orgy, if that makes sense. A way I think that Lottie could potentially misinterpret this message or Akilah's vision is Akilah did specify that she saw Coach Ben's body. She also mentioned that it was being suspended in the air and that she could feel him breathing and making it across. Yes, a lot of this could be accumulated to the context of what was going on and everything surrounding the situation, and it could have just been some fumes that messed with her brain. Obviously, there's a big argument to be made there. I do wonder if Lottie will take this interpretation and use some of the words in a more literal sense. Oh, if we just need his body, he doesn't really need to be alive, or maybe we can just consume his body, or whatever. And the more the season progressed, the more I figured this would be the case. If the girls had already killed Coach Ben at some point, it would make it easier to fully devolve into a sort of ritual like that. But oh boy, with the context we have now, you can reframe the potential of that scene in its entirety. See, what if it wasn't an animal massacre? What if, at some point during a ritual or another mushroom trip with all the girls, they end up murdering and absolutely massacring Coach Ben? This could explain Natalie's completely shocked reaction. The point is, I think one of these episodes is gonna have a pretty massive massacre, and at first I thought it would just be the animals, but now with Coach Ben's survival, I have a feeling this dude's gonna die in one of the most brutal ways imaginable, and it really sucks because this will solidify the fact that the girls will be the villains of the story. But that's basically my theory. I also want to touch real quickly on Shauna Shipman's character. I am going to create a Shauna Shipman video, but I want you guys, if you ever find yourself frustrated with her, which again, I get it, I very much am frustrated with her character as well, try to remember that her character, I think you're supposed to be frustrated with. She's very obviously meant to be an antagonistic, villainous type force. If you look at the first 2 seasons as build up for her villain arc, it's actually pretty great seeing her devolve into this absolutely evil character. Every time I find myself angry at Shauna and her decisions, I'm very much impressed with the fact that Sophie is able to pull off such amazing acting skills. Melissa's also killing it as well this season, so I'm glad she's getting more screen time. But both characters are very much intentionally written to be hated. It's okay to hate them, but let's remember the actors are killing it. They're absolutely killing it. They're meant to display these characters in a way to convey these emotions for you. Let alone the fact that if you just look at how Sophie presents her character in the first season versus the 3rd season, there's such different body language as a whole that she really is someone who's passionate about her craft, and you can tell. But I also want to touch on both Ty and Van's actors, both in the adult timeline and the younger timeline. both absolutely kill it. Every time they're on screen, I am able to take myself out of the context and really appreciate their relationship as a whole. And the relationship doesn't seem too jarring between what is actually happening surrounding them. Van is someone that I've never really seen as a necessarily good character. She jokes way too easily about people getting eaten and killed and literally getting shot. So in my head, I have no hope that she could potentially be a hero of the story. And I think the cave visions with the slap bracelet is proof of that. Aquila taking no damage signifies her innocence. Van taking some damage signifies that she has a little bit of darkness in her she's willing to touch, but not as much as Shauna, who straight up just, blah, you know. Those are my theories. What do you guys think though? Do you think Ben could potentially become the Oracle and maybe live on as the girl's guiding light to get home? Or do you think he could potentially get bodied in a future massacre coming up in the season? And if so, what do you think will happen? Will the girls eat him alive? Will they stab him and kill him right there? Will they shoot him right there? I don't know. I'm kind of worried for him though. I thought maybe seeing him make it through this episode would give me hope. But if anything, it's only filled me with dread. So, I don't know. I'm nervous for my boy, but I guess we'll find out. Anyways, thank you guys so much for the support. Really appreciate you guys checking it out. Court video will be coming out next week, but otherwise, have you guys a good rest of your day. And please stop eating your friends.